Good afternoon, everyone. I call to order this meeting of the Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. And we'll start with the Land Acknowledgement, and Mr. Mackay, I look to you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Krauser. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been fortunate to see eagles soaring in the sky on a few different occasions. And I suspect I'm not alone. When I see an eagle in the sky, I find myself, I stop dead in my tracks. I'm inspired by the animal and the way it gracefully, I guess, experiences the world in a much different way than I do. You know, when I'm stopped looking at the eagle, I'm often reminded as well that in many Indigenous cultures, the eagle symbolizes strength and courage. And just as the eagle soars high with vision and strength, may we walk with awareness, respect, and humility, guided by the wisdom of those who have stewarded this land for generations. Namely, the Stoney Nakoda, comprised of the Bearspaw First Nation, Chiniki First Nation, and Goodstoney First Nation, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Kainai, and Kainai. And I'd like to acknowledge that this land is also home to the Rocky View Métis District 4 within the Battle River Territory. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we will now move to approval of our agenda. Looking to see if there's any changes. Not seeing any, so I'll move approval of the agenda for the May 20th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now let's look at the minutes of February 18th, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone noticed? See none. I move that we approve the minutes of the February 18th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, we'll move on to staff reports. The FireSmart Neighborhood Recognition Program. Chief Reuters, welcome to Committee of the Whole, and whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for making the time and the opportunity for me to deliver this information to you. So hopefully you've had time to look at the report. I provided a bit of a summary and some background as to basically what we're doing. So we're kind of changing gears from doing a one-off home hazard assessment to implementation of a neighborhood recognition program. And you'll see the benefits of this as I move forward with my presentation. Okay. So since 2013, I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of work from a wildfire point of view. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but I landed in BC and I was fortunate enough to be able to meet a gentleman by the name of Alan Westhaver. Alan Westhaver was one of the co-founders of FireSmart program in this sort of area. He did a lot of work in Jasper and Banff, and then he sort of semi-retired, and he came and introduced himself to me when I was the fire chief in Fernie, BC. And he asked me, he says, are you familiar or do you know what FireSmart is? And coming from the city, I didn't really have much of an understanding of it. So oddly enough, he welcomed me to the community, and then he also empowered me to actually take FireSmart to the next level and get Fernie sort of recognized as a community as well. So I really appreciate his time and patience as I learned the processes. Okay, so today really what I want to do is talk about the three goals for the presentation we're going to go through. The first one is to help you better understand how a wildfire behaves, how homes catch fire, and the threat that wildfire poses to the town of Canmore and to our neighborhoods. Secondly, I'd like to explain some of the solutions that we propose to prevent the ignition of homes from wildfire. In particular, how we believe adopting the FireSmart Neighborhood Recognition Program can help us progress in this direction. And thirdly, we are seeking the support of Mayor and Council for FireSmart initiatives planned by Canmore Fire and which will be undertaken by district residents. Okay, so to this point, the town of Canmore has been quite successful in their initiatives. So our current FireSmart program has had our team doing home hazard assessments, so basically one home at a time. We've got 9 Canmore Fire Rescue staff that are trained up to do such a thing. You can see in 2022, we started off with 12, and then as the years have gone by, we've progressed. To note, 2024, we did 74 home hazard assessments. So in 2025, we want to change gears a little bit, as I said earlier, and implement the neighborhood recognition program. We currently have 2 Canmore Fire staff trained up to be able to implement this, and there should be 2 more as we move into 2025 and through that. And just a little note there at the bottom, individual home hazard assessments will drop due to this program. So it's not that we're not doing the work, we're just doing it in a different way. We're involving entire communities instead of one home at a time. One of the things that I've seen since I've been here is those one-off assessments do require a lot of time, and it's starting to have a little bit of an impact with some of the operational things that we should also be doing, such as inspections, public education, training, station duties, and those things. So we've got to find that balance, and I think if we adopt this program, we'll be successful in doing such. So this is why the Neighborhood Recognition Program offers value. It's driven by the community with support from our fire service. Okay, so a little bit more about the Neighborhood Recognition Program. So it all started in the United States, and their program down there is called FireWise, whereas in Canada we call it FireSmart. So about 1,500 US neighborhoods have taken the challenge, and in Canada, a lot of communities are doing the same thing. So it works. The fire prevention measures have shown themselves to work in the face of oncoming fires. FireSmart communities do survive. It's simple, it's grassroots, and it's lots of fun. The program empowers people with knowledge and organization required to act effectively in fire prevention mode. Your neighborhood FireSmart plan greatly augments the efforts of municipal and wildfire responders. Okay, so you can see this slide here shows some stats, but before we get into the stats, let's look at, basically what happens with wildfire. So if you look at that triangle, we call that a fire triangle, and there's 3 things required to be able to have a wildfire. So the weather is one of them, obviously, the fuel that we have on the forest floor, and the topography. Down on the chart there, you can see a picture on the right side of the Jasper fire in 2024. I think we're all quite familiar with that devastation. So in Jasper, which was just last year, they lost 820 homes. Fortunately, no lives lost, but they evacuated 25,000 people and over 3,200 hectares burned. Then we fast forward to 25, Los Angeles, and I'm pretty sure this is the Palisades fire. 6,800 homes lost, 25 lives lost, 200,000 evacuated, and 9,500 hectares burned. Okay, so as we know, there's lots going on, and climate change does play a significant role in all of this. So one of the concerns we have is the forest health. So if you think about Jasper and the pine beetle infestation they had there, that causes a significant problem because now you've got standing dead, which when sparks and embers reach those forest floors, that standing dead will continue to burn. Insect epidemics, lots of fuel load. As I said earlier, climate change, longer fire seasons, increased areas burned, increasing development in the wildland-urban interface areas. I mean, everybody wants to live in this beautiful environment in the mountains, in the middle of the woods, but the reality is that comes with some threat. And I think we need to understand that a little bit better. So what is FireSmart? So FireSmart simply means a well-defined set of principles, practices, and guidelines that reduce the risk of wildfire losses. FireSmart was established in 1999 and has been evolving and improving ever since. So when do urban wildland fires occur? Well, wildfires happen during low to high fire danger. The significant events such as the Jasper, the Fort McMurray, and so on usually only happen when the conditions are extreme. So if you think about our service, how effective can we be when we have a situation like Jasper? We don't have enough resources. Even if mutual aid was enacted, we still don't have enough resources to combat such a significant event. So we need to sort of understand how we're going to get ahead of it. So the big question is really what is causing our homes to ignite? So that picture there kind of explains it all. So that is what they call like a shower of embers or a blizzard of embers. And those are the things that cause our homes to catch on fire. But if we think about things for a minute and start to mitigate and grab that low-hanging fruit, meaning the properties we live on and what we can do to our house and the land around it, maybe we can mitigate the threat and get rid of this problem. So the myth is that our homes are burning due to fire. But the reality is our homes are burning because of the embers that land in our combustible properties. Okay, so this is a bit of a chart here that kind of explains the sequence. So we start with severe fire conditions. Again, that fire triangle was referenced earlier. Fuel, weather, topography. A wildland fire is basically a rapid fire spread or high intensity, and that's usually within the forest. And then once the forest continues to carry on and those embers get airborne and start to land on our properties, that's when we're presented with this bigger problem, and that's the urban fire. So now we've got multiple simultaneous ignitions. Pardon me. So our crews are overwhelmed because we can't keep up from a suppression point of view. Basically, there will be no fire protection because we just don't have enough resources to go around. So the houses are just going to burn till there's no more fuel left. And what that really adds up to is a big disaster. You can see here, as I didn't click my mouse, it's just a sequence of events, so I'll sort of fast go through this. Okay. So the big question is, are these fires insurmountable? And the answer on the screen says no. I think it's very true, yes. Because we can break that pattern or interrupt the sequence is what I like to say. So if you look at the slides again, we talk about the weather, the topography, the forest burning, but if we eliminate the structure fire, then we're ahead of the game. The forest can manage itself on some level. If you remember way back when, they used to do a lot of prescribed burns, or just naturally with lightning, the forest and the fuel on the forest floor would burn. So it wasn't an ongoing problem. But if we can eliminate what's happening to our structures, then our fire suppression crews won't be overwhelmed. We will be able to provide fire protection if necessary, and then we eliminate the disaster. That's kind of the mindset. So this is an interesting picture. So this is taken from Fort Mac. So the fellow I mentioned at the start, Al Westhaver, he also works for the Institute of Catastrophic Loss. It's an insurance board, I believe. And he gets hired to do investigations of fires such as Fort Mac. He also did the Lytton investigation, so he's very well versed in this. So these are some of his pictures from his investigation at Fort Mac. So the yellow circle there is highlighting a FireSmart neighborhood. But if you look across the street, what do you see? You see devastation. Those homes weren't FireSmarted. So it's interesting to think that, you know, I don't know, maybe 100 feet across the road, that subdivision or development survived. So here's a bit of a chart showing the home ignition zone. We talk about local. So local is the area actually around your house. And then we have sorts of tolerances, measurements, things you can do to mitigate the threat of fire around your home. So this is a universally accepted concept. It's been proven with over nearly 70 years of observation and research. If a home ignites, usually it's quite small, but it's well proven. Flames from even the most intense forest fire cannot ignite a wood wall at a distance of more than 30 meters. So again, back to what I said earlier, it's not the flames that's igniting the house, it's those embers that are airborne. Okay, so the problem has been redefined. So disastrous wildland fires are a home ignition problem, not a wildfire control problem. So if you look at this, the picture on the left there, you can see that forest is just, it's an inferno right now. That's a deck in a house that's in the vicinity. This is after that fire managed to burn all the fuel that it could find. We still have a house standing. So that's a good thing. And the hope is that if we fire smart our homes, we can have those examples as well. But let's really hope we don't get to that point. So one of the things that we talk about when we talk about the one-off home hazard assessment is the fact that we can't tell our neighbors what to do on their property. So then the concern is if I fire smart my home and you don't do yours, then I'm at risk because of the work you didn't do. So with the neighborhood recognition program, now we've got the entire community, so anywhere between 20 and 50 homes possibly, that are all working towards the same goals. And then you don't have to worry about that overlap. So that brings us to the FireSmart Neighborhood Recognition Program. So basically, we're encouraging self-organizing groups of neighbors to work together with a fire professional, which would be somebody from our team here, and among themselves to plan and implement effective solutions to prevent home ignitions. The program works best with kind of like a block party size group. As I said earlier, 20 to 50 homes. When residents begin action to become FireSmart, the neighborhood is awarded national recognition in the form of a sign that they can post in their neighborhood. So this is how it works. So if you go through 1 to 8, it sort of explains the process. So the first one is the community or the neighborhood contacts our fire department. There's a site visit from a specialist from our team. They do what's called a neighborhood recognition program hazard assessment. Then the neighbors form a FireSmart community. The committee creates a mitigation plan. It's basically a work plan. The residents, with the support of the fire department, implement the plan. Once the work's done, they would apply to FireSmart Alberta for their recognition. Once they get their recognition, they receive, it's like a metal sign that would go at the start of their community, and then every year if they did a work bee, the designation would change from, let's say, 25 to 26 to 27, so on and so forth. So it encourages them to keep moving forward. So in my previous workplace back in Fernie, BC, one of the things one of my FireSmart coordinators did was he wanted to keep things moving forward. So once they got their recognition, we didn't want to lose sight of that good work, and there was a lot more work to be done. So he organized what we called like a coffee chat. So he would invite all the community champions down to a local coffee shop, and we would sit down and discuss what was going to happen next. So if you really think about the value in getting this going, if you look at the green triangle there, we started off in Fernie with 3 FireSmart representatives. We targeted up to 17 neighborhoods and identified community champions in each one. In turn, that equates to about 800 homes and roughly 2,000 residents that are aware now and educated and working towards FireSmart recognition. I can't show you the video because our speakers are not working. Well, we can give it a shot then. Okay, just a second.
comes to fire risk for the residents of Castle Mountain in
Oh,
Fernie,
sorry.
this is ground zero.
This green space behind these houses is the biggest threat to these houses. So we're trying to reduce the fire
Yeah, just-
intensity in case there is a wildland fire in this area. Just reduce that fire intensity
Hang on.
and save the properties, hopefully.
So the area is being thinned out as part of the FireSmart Community Recognition Program.
I don't know why it's not
Empowers
working.
homeowners like Jim Catley to reduce risk in their neighbourhoods.
The goals are to, of course, mitigate wildfire risks and take away some of the latter fuels that are prone to be very volatile.
Do you have the answer?
when the fire comes.
Things have been moving along quickly after
Pause that. And then if we go,
Oh, you gotta do the drag thing.
yeah, and then this is the best part is it's like a, oh,
Okay.
ready?
Thank you.
When it comes to fire risk for the residents of Castle Mountain in Fernie, this is ground zero.
This green space behind these houses is the biggest threat to these houses. So we're trying to reduce the fire intensity in case there is a wildland fire in this area. Just reduce that fire intensity and save the properties, hopefully.
So the area is being thinned out as part of the FireSmart Community Recognition Program, which empowers homeowners like Jim Catley to reduce risk in their neighbourhoods.
The goals are to, of course, mitigate wildfire risks and take away some of the latter fuels that are prone to be very volatile in the event a fire comes.
Things have been moving along quickly after forming a board, having a hazard assessment completed and receiving a $500 grant from FireSmart Canada. It was time to get to work.
The first recommendation was to do vegetation management along this old power line pathway.
So Catley would organise a work bee to bring the neighbourhood together, and over 30 people came to help.
It's terrific to get buy-in by neighbors and to have volunteer work, and it's a great way to get to know our neighbors better.
Fire department staff would stop by to lend a hand after playing a significant role in getting the program off the ground.
We have incredible support from the fire department, which we would not have been able to do this without. And so that's a really big stakeholder to have good buy-in with and support.
For us, it's really a pilot project. I mean, he's the first one to really run with the ball, and we're hoping, yeah, it'll be a great example of others to follow.
Alan Westaver, who first developed the program, says Catley's progress over the past few months will be used as an example for other communities going forward.
This is exactly what the program is designed to do, and it's really fulfilling to see how fast this neighborhood has come together, how the community champion Jim has pulled together his neighbors and the enthusiasm they have for the FireSmart event.
Catley will continue working toward the goal of making Castle Mountain Fernie's first certified FireSmart community.
By documenting what we're doing and continuing to follow the steps in the FireSmart Community Recognition Program, that we may achieve recognition later this year, and then we would look at renewing each year annually by hosting at least one additional work event and many information meetings.
And as the fire department looks to expand the program, the focus will not only be on engaging homeowners like Catley, but also developers and landscapers.
If the developer is on board and would like to see their whole development FireSmart, that just gives us one step ahead right from the start. And then often those people are paying landscapers to come and finish their property, to landscape it. And if a landscaper has FireSmart principles behind what they're doing, it's just going to make everything a lot easier.
For the community producers in Fernie, I'm James Funn.
I'm gonna throw my back out here. We did it. Okay, so that was the video. We made it. So basically, I'm not asking you to make any decisions. We're just looking for continued support, and I know you've been very supportive to this point, so it's all good. One of the things I do want to just plant a seed with, and I don't have an answer, so I'm just going to throw it out there. We're getting a lot of people that are coming to us wanting to do work on property that isn't theirs, meaning town property, right? So there's a huge issue with that. It's a liability. So, but we'd like to take advantage of all that, the work, and the many hands make less work, right? So I don't know how we get there, but it's something we're getting emails about, you know? So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind, so. And that's all I have. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. We certainly do have questions. So I'm going to go first to Councillor Mara.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ritter, for your great presentation and information. I just have a couple questions. Is the training open to just anyone, or do you have to be like a fireman or person?
Yes, so you can go online to FireSmart Canada, FireSmart Alberta, and do what we call FireSmart 101, which is just a basic introduction to what FireSmart's all about. The training, once our team gets trained up, and I can't speak so much for the Alberta model because I'm really more familiar with the BC model at this point, but we did train members of the public to be recognized community champions, and it gave them just some more information to move forward and do the work. So I don't know if Caitlin has any more information on that or not, but that's kind of the way it works.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Could I have another
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
Oh. And then I had, does the fire department or the town have the town of Canmore broken down into neighborhoods? So there's somebody wanting to start up and do something, they know where their house is and what the neighborhood encompasses, like, if, like, I live in Cougar Creek, is it all of that
Yeah.
zone, or in Cougar Point separate, or is there some sort of zoning that you have a map?
Nothing specific, but because
Okay.
we've only, and I think I forgot to mention, the Peaks of Grassy is our first neighborhood.
Yes, yes.
So you're familiar with that
Yes.
area. They're the ones that have, so they're gonna take the ball and run with it, so to speak. And the hope is through education and social media, we can get more people involved. But usually it's them coming to us to say, hey, we've heard about this program, how can you support us, right? Cougar Creek is one, oddly enough, you brought that up. They've reached out to us to have some conversation about it as well, so, yeah.
And one last question, and we talk about landscapers, are landscapers, do you know if different companies have done some fire smarting education, or maybe that's open to them also?
There is one garden center, and I don't know the name of it right now.
That's okay, I don't need names.
Anyway, there's one garden center in our community who is aware of FireSmart, and they're handing out brochures,
Okay,
and hopefully they're getting educated.
okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
so it's getting there, right?
yeah, yeah, mhm,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much.
So just building on Councillor Mara's question, I just want to clarify. So through education and building awareness, hopefully attracting people who are interested in being involved, is it entirely waiting on those, or are there a few that could, like in the one of the slides you showed, there was like 3 people that were very interested in getting this program out, and they identified key neighborhoods, and then they went out and proactively sought champions. That's what it sounded like in that other community.
Yeah,
Is there
it's
some
also-
combination of that, so we're not just waiting for people to come to us, but maybe somewhere meeting them in the middle?
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about how we approach the plan and the resources we have. So, you know, we've been pretty vocal, if you will, and have been participating in some panel events, one in Banff, one just recently at the Gem Center here in Harvey Heights, sorry.
Yeah.
And then we're continuing to work with Peaks of Grassy. Biosphere Institute has shown some interest in doing some things. So it really boils down to getting the word out there and having people approach us. We're not gonna stop doing our one-off home hazard assessments. They're gonna continue going, but the goal is to sort of taper back a little bit and focus on the community, so. It really just takes time. So for example, I landed in Fernie in 2013, and when I left there, you know, 8 years later, we had, like the slide said, almost 17 recognized communities. It takes a long time. When the program was just in its infancy when I got there, and we were getting quite discouraged because we weren't getting any traction. And the money that the government in BC was giving back then was like peanuts. So what could we do with $500 or $1,000 over the course of a calendar year? Not too much. And what we found was we were spending our money on advertising outside of social media, like newspapers. That comes at a cost, right? And it wasn't really working for us. And unfortunately, what I tell you does work for us is the disasters.
Disasters, yeah.
And that's just the way of the world, like we're a reactive society, right? So we got most of our traction after Fort Mac and then the Lytton fire and so on and so forth, right?
Councillor Faubert?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate in the slide here exploring the ability for organized neighborhoods to manage vegetation on adjacent government lands. I think that that's an opportunity for collaboration and building relationships in neighborhoods. And I really appreciate that you've identified that. And I know that there needs to be a mechanism to allow that, which I'm interested in exploring. And I feel like the issue there that you brought up was around liability. And so I have a question around insurance. How does this work relate to how homes are insured for fire? And have we seen anywhere where insurance companies are unwilling to insure homes yet?
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit of that. Again, my experience isn't specifically with Alberta, but in BC and in FireSmart Canada in general, they had a partner with Cooperators Insurance. And a lot of the sessions or conferences I would go to, they always had a presence there. And they were very supportive of what we were trying to do from a FireSmart point of view. Now, I can't honestly tell you that there was a significant savings for homeowners. That's still probably a work in progress. And I know they're still involved, and there's another company that escapes my memory right now that is getting on board as well. The hope is that we will have our Peaks of Grassy community do all the work, get the recognition, and then maybe they could reach out to their insurance providers and say, hey, look what we've done here. What does that look like?
Yeah, and that's kind of where my curiosity came in, is that does this have a knock-on effect in terms of, savings for insurance? And that, because I think that's also an incentive for neighborhoods if it does.
Yeah, one would think that eventually it should, because I don't know about you folks, but I got a notice of my payment due for my insurance with the property I have in Fernie still, and one of the things that was very clear on there was, do you live in a wildfire zone? So they're starting to pay attention because now it's costing them. They're starting to have to pay money now, right? And they don't like doing that, obviously. So it's something to be aware of. And I mean, we as a people are the ones that are going to have to push the insurance industry to recognize what we're doing, and hopefully we can reap the benefits of some savings.
Yeah, and I'm not even certain that we'll see savings, but I think it's a win if we continue to be able to be insured.
Exactly.
No, because there are places that are no longer able to be insured for a variety of risks, but with wildfire, there's a place in California, they're just not insuring homes. And I was sitting in on a call with a fellow from the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and this is very much on their radar. The things that a community can do are lots of the things we are already doing, so that's good. With fire smarting, with fire breaks, with creating the atmosphere for individuals to prepare themselves, etc. So that's good news. We're going in the right direction, but it's a big issue, and ultimately, I think that if insurers stop covering, then all of a sudden people look to government, whether it be provincial or federal, to provide that backstop, and then they're going to be regulating that, because they wouldn't provide a backstop unless they made sure that the risk was minimized, right? And so it's good to get ahead of it, right, and do it voluntarily, right? With the with getting champions together or going, has there been any thought given to like putting a call out for people that could sit in a workshop and hear about the program directly, that might want to, just dip their toe in to see if it might be something they want to move forward with? Might that be a way to, without having to do it 12 times for 12 people, to try to do one workshop for 12 people.
Yeah, I think it's an awareness piece for sure, and we had the most success in Fernie with the stratas and the condo boards. We would attend their AGMs, and that was an opportunity to really educate them. And then they would take on that work. So Fernie Alpine Resort had all kinds of different condos up on the ski hill there, and we probably had our most traction dealing with that group of people. Yeah. The other piece that's interesting is the demographic of people that are signing up to do this work. And I'm not suggesting that the younger crowd isn't worthy of doing it, it's just they have other priorities right now. So what we find is we attract a lot of the people that are just on the border of retiring, or they are retired, yeah, and they have the time to volunteer and do some of that hard work, right? That's the demographic of people we want to try and attract.
Right on. Yeah. Right on. I had a question, and this is probably more for Dr. Cottle and admin. I know that the town has and is taking steps to protect key infrastructure, right? But when I hear about community requests, I'm thinking in terms they probably want to do something on their neighborhood park, or maybe it's in the alleys or something like that. I was just wondering if there's a mechanism that's going to be set up, or that action being taken that can actually respond to those requests. And especially if people are willing to do, I know there's liability issues and stuff, but if people are willing to bring in the tree removal company and get rid of that evergreen tree on the playground, is that something that people can access administration to get that permission, or, Mr. Mackay?
As we move towards more of a neighborhood recognition program, I mean, that's something we need to explore further. But what I will say is there's heavy engagement with our Parks Department as far as how we could potentially move forward with something like that. Just as we're at, I'm going to say, more of the infancy of the neighborhood recognition program, we don't have a process fully fleshed out. But in presenting to council and with the success in Peaks, and largely thanks to that group, I think we've got the groundwork in place to start to explore some of those processes in a little more depth.
Okay, thanks. And Dr. Cottle?
I mean, I'll also add to that, the town of Canmore has been through FRIA, been FireSmarting around the community for a long time. Yes. So we actually have a really good base at managing town land. And there is a bit of a sweet spot. Neighbors and individuals have different tolerances for, right? Some people there's different thresholds for what is the appropriate guideline versus other benefits to the community. And so we also would need to think about criteria in addition to all of the liability and insurance. Based on an incident in Bragg Creek, it's really difficult to have volunteers involved in tree removal now. Yeah. So there's a lot to consider there. To me, I think the bigger message is the town of Canmore, sort of linked with what Chief Reuter was talking to in terms of the amount of time it took to get traction. The town of Canmore has been doing this work for a long time. So in terms of the town land, we're actually in a really good spot in terms of advancing that work, and because we've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, of course, and I didn't mean to negate all the great work that's been done. I was just wondering how those requests might be evaluated or received, because it's obviously in places that we wouldn't necessarily have done the fire smarting if they're coming in, and they may or may not be appropriate requests, but we just need to be able to evaluate them, right? Okay, thanks for those answers. Councillor Ma.
Thank you for your presentation, Chief Reuter. Could you go back to the slide that shows the house with the deck and that crazy fire right beside it, and then the after photo, the home looks unscathed?
You're asking a lot here.
Sorry. If you can't get to that, I understand. I can still ask my question.
Why isn't this working? Give me a second here. So did you want to talk about that? So
yeah, I was just curious because sometimes when I think of fire smarting, like removing the things around your home, and I just found it so interesting that this wood deck right beside did not light up.
Well, I think that it was pointed out that with the fire smarting being done, it's basically removed the trees within 30 meters of that deck. And as the chief mentioned, you're not gonna have it catch fire from that fire, and now you're just dealing with, and then if you've cleared the areas, there's little for the embers to catch, right? Little fuel. Of course, a lot of people have pointed out that or some people have pointed out that, who I've talked to, and their concerns are, well, 30 meters of my home is actually 2 houses down, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and that's what's the beauty of a neighborhood approach, is that you can hopefully, it's no longer the individual trying to talk to their neighbors. It's a whole neighborhood saying, hey, what are we gonna do together? And it's a different type of conversation, right? Yeah.
That's what you wanted there?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't pretend to know where that was actually taken from. But if you look at it, I get your question, because it appears that it's probably a wood deck. I'm gonna maybe lean towards the fact that maybe it's a composite deck.
Okay.
But it is interesting to see that it did survive, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as an example, say like the Peaks group with the champions that are leading the FireSmart there, what sort of time commitment have they put in so far? Because I'm sure some people are thinking, hey, my neighborhood, is this going to be 40 hours, 100 hours?
It really depends on the work plan and what they're trying to achieve in year one. So they're just at the beginning stages. So I think they've got the plan ready, and I don't think they've actually had their worker be.
Okay, awesome.
So it's really early stages, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Looking to see if there are any other questions. Seeing none, thank you very much, Chief, for being here and presenting to us. And I certainly hope that this program gets some good coverage, because as I've already seen it in the paper, but continues to get coverage, because I think we need to find those champions, those people that are willing to knock on doors to see if neighbors are interested, and put the call out to do that. So thank you for your efforts in that regard.
Well, you're welcome. And, just so you do know, you've done a lot of great work here. And if you just continue on that path and get the community involved, you should be very successful.
Excellent. Thank you. Well,
Thank
have
you.
a good rest of the day. Okay, and now we'll move on to item E, Councillor updates. I will just open it up for council members to ask any questions of anyone that they might have. These are bigger than usual reports, given that we have not had a committee of the whole meeting since February. So it covers a lot of ground, and so there's a lot in there, and I really appreciated all the information that was provided by members of council. So any questions on anything by anyone? Anyone? Bueller? No. Okay. We'll move then on to administrative updates. Similarly, there's a lot of information from a long period of time. Occasionally, you'll see something that was obviously put in for an earlier cow, and it may not have had the verb tenses or something updated, but I think we get the gist here. I do have a question right off the top with the session with the local realtors. How did that go?
I think it went fine. It was scheduled for an hour. We went an hour and 20. It could have gone a lot longer. There were a lot of questions. There was some hostility, to be frank, which I think we were all surprised by. We thought it was information gathering. There were also just some really good questions, people trying to understand the implications of what things mean so that they can provide facts to clients. I think everybody wants to get it right, and there are some what-ifs and shades of gray that can make it challenging. What I do think, I mean, staff I thought did a really good job answering questions, and hopefully what it did is helped those folks know who to reach out to when they have additional questions, and that we are trying to, in earnest, to answer questions and to address challenges or unique circumstances that don't fit regular molds. So on the whole, I think it was a really good use of our time, and I'm hopeful that it was useful for them as well.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Looking to see if there are any other questions within Section A, Corporate Strategic Team. Moving to Section B, Municipal Services. I appreciate the statistics to show how the affordability program continues to grow. And, when I take a look at 2024, 650 households are enrolled. And that's a substantial benefit to the community. I'm glad that the awareness is getting out, that we can see that sort of growth where the need is. Any questions on Section B? Okay, moving to Section C, Corporate Services. Anyone want to put our new GM on the spot? Yeah. No, it's not looking like any takers there. Okay, and D, Municipal Infrastructure. Any questions there? I appreciated the reporting on, well, maybe it was earlier up there, on the households that suffered the water freezing. And, Councillor McCallum, I'll hand it over to you if you were wanting to ask me.
Question, and I was like scrolling through it going, I was thinking about it this morning and actually woke me up. I was like, I'm gonna ask this question to Cow, and it may or may not be important. So yes, unprecedented freezing of lines in the valley bottom, and completely explainable. I did get a couple of calls from constituents, some who were like upset and some who were like super grateful to the staff. So always soup to nuts. But one of the questions I had for the folks that had to run their water for several weeks, was that, like, did they get a credit or anything on their water bill, or was that a full water bill for them to pay? That was more of a question of curiosity than anything else.
That's a great question, and I actually don't know that answer, but I will, Ms. Smithers couldn't be here, so I will follow up with her and we will get back to you on that. It's a good
Thanks.
question.
That was honestly all I had.
Yeah.
Actually, you've just triggered for me an unrelated question, but I wanted to bring it up. I know that individual members of council have either been informed of a problem with Blinkay or have experienced it themselves, where if you're using part of your 3 hours at one point and then at another time using the rest of your 3 hours, there's been a problem with Blinkay that second session is being charged. And I know that administration has been made aware of this and that there's work being done, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to be able to ask Mr. Mackay where that's at.
My understanding from staff is that problem was discovered around May 12th and was resolved last Thursday, so the 15th. Okay. So if individuals are still finding they're running into problems there, they can always contact parking@camwar.ca. Would be the best place to go if they're still experiencing that issue.
Okay. And I know we're talking 75 cents or $1.50s or anything like that. Will there be any refunds of those amounts, or can you actually track that through the system, who was charged or is that have to be the individual bringing it to the attention of administration?
I believe I have that information in here, but I would need to just a second to find it.
Okay.
So I don't have an off the top of my head or off the cuff answer, but I can certainly
Yeah, why
get
don't I
back
just
to you on
leave that with you? But I'm very happy to hear that the problem's been resolved. Thank you. Councillor Ma, you have a question?
Yeah, just regarding the commercial inspection of the bypass of the water meter. It sounds like Public Works is working with municipal enforcement to finalize a response. Curious if anything came out of that, or is that still in process?
Dr. Cotto?
That's another one I don't know, but I will follow up and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the administrative updates? All right. We are pretty much through here then, other than, were there any questions arising from the council resolution action list? Seeing none, I will move that we adjourn. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.